All right, we about to get this thing started. Get this set up. All right. Get a few people on here. Get Coach Rick up here. Taking so long. Except. There we go.
I was giggling.
You like that, huh?
Requesting
you got the memo?
Like, oh, gosh, we got the same shirt on.
Yeah. My guy, Mike, you need to hit me up, dog. I need to talk to you, bro. I got some stuff I want to talk to you about. I got to check on you. I ain't heard from you in a minute. The DB that was at Arkansas that transferred over that had the ACL.
Nothing, man. You got a chance to relax after the lab weekend, or you keep rolling?
No, I did, dude. Monday this week I went till 9 o'clock every day. I've been getting here at 8 o'clock in the morning for Jameis, and then I go all the way till 9, and I've been having, it just don't stop. Today, when we done with this live, I'm done. So you're starting to freeze up. See if he must be getting some bad Wi-Fi. Giants or Eagles? Eagles. Who asked that? Let's see. This is Rick. Except, let me see what's happening here. He's gone. Wait, he's back, I think.
Am I okay? So
there you go.
Yeah, disclaimer. If at any point when you guys are watching this back, it looks like I'm cutting off Gary's speech, it's because the Wi-Fi is funky over there in the lab.
Well, it's. I don't think it was here. I think because mine's showing full right now.
I got
so far we good. But yeah, it
does
happen here. Over here, it'll just like turn off and come right back on, and then it screws everything up. It looks like our words are off. Look like the little
Bruce
Chinese karate movies and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, no, I just been rolling. Today's gonna be the first day I get to get out of here once we're done with this live. But no, man, it's been refreshing, like having somebody come in and really, like, dude, when I tell you, like, I'm like, get that eye over the second toe. It's like he's really in the mirror, like literally, like it's very, very precise, and that may be the QB thing. You know what I'm saying? Like everything's built around precision and timing, and it's just a behavioral thing that he's developed over time being a quarterback. But it's really been it's been pretty cool, man, having him in here and having him kind of buy into the system. And the guy, Coach Otis Levert, he's like with him, so that's his guy, his mentor that's been dealing with him since he's like 14, and he's bought in, he's seeing it, and it's like kind of one of the things like when I had the Jamal moment, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like, man, what have I been doing? What have I been doing that's been contributing to maybe possibly hurting these guys or putting these guys in a bad situation or something like that? And we naturally we don't want to do that as trainers, and the guys that's out there doing that stuff, they don't want to do that. It's just you kind of got to have that.
Yeah, nobody's in the business of trying to get anybody hurt, and everybody that is training GOATA at this point wasn't training GOATA at some other previous point. And if you weren't looking for that durability or you didn't know it, it's easy to train out of it or to train against it. We know how detailed and precise inner ankle bone high is, back chain dominance is. You let in with that regarding Jameis and the details of exactly where your eye is. And when I got to spend Thursday watching you guys work, he is very professional. He carries himself obviously very well, and he's tapped into the details. I'd say any young kid watching this or any young athlete I think that's something that's always important to, you know, a narrative that they need to lock into. I mean, this is Jameis Winston, you know, heralded phenom, right? Heisman winner, national championship winner, super talented, looks like a tight end. But even with all those genetic gifts and that skill set, he's still super tapped in to the details. They're not just resting on their laurels. These guys are trying to press that 1% further in their game. And it's really cool to watch. You know, it's great to watch very talented people, you know, very successful people work, because it's a study in a sense. It's something that constantly confirms itself. We know now what it takes to be great, but it's not always easy to do. You know, I say that to the young athletes listening, like Jameis is a guy who, you know, 7 days a week from the morning till the end of the day, he's working to get better. You can see it in his demeanor and how he carries himself. So never take anything for granted. Even these guys that are at the top level, that are the best of the best, they still work with that same sort of hunger that you should be establishing back in 8th grade, maybe 7th if you're taking it serious. So that's just a little message, I think, something that everybody can take away from, especially the young cats that are watching here.
Yeah, and it's one of the things where you see this guy, and like I said earlier, you find out along the way as you start doing the GOATA stuff that was I hurting people, was I putting them in a bad situation and things like that. And then, you know, it's like his trainer, you hate to see a kid like, man, I flipped this thing when Jamal got hurt. And could you imagine the NFL right now without Jamal Chase? Like, it would have just been, and I could have done that more so than I could have got him there. You know what I'm saying? I could have gotten his way more than I could have ever helped him get there. And it's like, you know, I'm not helping him get there. He's
right.
These guys have gifts. They talent, and they develop a work ethic that gets them there. If I always say it, if a trainer says that they took a part in like getting somebody somewheres or a part of their process and all of that, man, let me tell you what, Jamar Chase or you know, Jameis Winston, they going to the league without you, trust me. Like, it wasn't required. If anything, you probably could hurt them more. But, you know, one of the things that we was talking about, like the kind of getting into the detail, and he did it really well. I was talking to him about it today, was like we see the heel flip out exaggerated, like in the exercise, instead of it happening at the ankle level and the hip, where you kind of get that corner to happen. And what they do is they leave the ankle stuck together, and you can kind of elaborate more.
No,
on
that's spot on. We saw that a lot probably earlier in GOATA, where people are the word pivot maybe gets misconstrued. I'm trying to think back, because I'm always big on extreme ownership. You know, we're the ones teaching it. So if people leave and they don't quite understand what we're saying, and then they can't code up, and then their brains start to get scrambled from there, it's like it's back on what are we saying. So I think pivot, you know, maybe another word needs to be added, pivot point. And if you have a pivot point, then the shin and the thigh can work, and it's like that joystick type analogy, right? The foot holds still, the shin and the thigh do the snapping. Now, if you're doing like what Gary was saying, where you're sliding the foot, then you're not creating that sort of healthy disassociation, where if this is my foot and this is my shin, I got to wind up, down, back out, and then come up, around, and in. That's the bow, that's the corner. Throughout that process, the foot has to actually hold still. So bow, corner, foot hold still. And then once you release, that pressure transfer right there of the corner then leads to a release of the pivot point. Then you can see the foot get brought heel away from that tornado that's spinning inside the column, from the shin compartment up through to the wrist. So that is much different than if you're here, this is your foot and this is your shin. Now you're taking both and you're sliding them like this. And you can get away with it in a sled push and stuff like that. Yeah.
This is it. Like, you know, you would go bow and then corner, but you'll see bow and then corner like that. And then you can leave the ankle stuck together if you're just doing this. You know, you might get a little bit out of it, but you're not going to get, like, you really could get that, you know, and then it goes back back to, like you said, that hip and that ankle have to work in harmony.
Yeah, and to speak on that, I think we all have to take a step back once we first observe GOATA, and we need to understand that when we go to look at our own movement and start to feel what's going on inside our own bodies and really take inventory. Okay, like what's wrecked? Like I got a collarbone, I got an ankle sprain. Like I need to almost take inventory first when you realize GOATA. And then the most humbling thing is how stuck these compartments are. And furthermore, how stuck that foot and that shin bone are together. And that's the toughest part about the Recode, is that you got to get heat, you got to get pressure down in that very bottom of the column where the platform and the shin meet and where they sort of create this healthy disassociation. So that in and of itself is a process. And inside of that process, the attention to detail cannot be stressed enough. You know, we talk so much about the big toe and where it needs to be in contact, and then that little tug of war between the inner ankle bone apex and the big toe. And then another thing that needs to be layered into that is you're not going to have your inside. A lot of people aren't going to have their best version present on day one. So you really are trusting the tape, because you can't trust your feelings. That's the tough part about some of the GOATA stuff early on, is that you've got to recognize that, you know, when we're sort of introing GOATA, like if we're doing a speech, we always talk about the 4 tribes, right? And, you know, Gary and Rick aren't in those 4 tribes. we aren't citing ourselves. No. Like you're right. So when you're coming back to recode yourself, you've got to have a humbling moment of like, hey, my feels aren't always going to be real here. So let me get in front of a mirror. Let me put this on tape, because what often happens with coaches is we've got a history of training and exercising, and it's so easy to get outside of the 22.5. It's so easy to misrepresent the inner ankle bone high setting, especially early on in your training when you're coming around to it, or if you try to push too far too soon into a dynamic setting. So that's why going slow and doing the groundwork and paying attention to those details, like you see the sled push on Instagram for Jameis, right? But what you didn't see was when Gary was doing the assessment, introing the groundwork, spending a lot of time that first day at 6 pivot points, spending a lot of time that first day at maybe 4 pivot points, and then gradually standing him up and getting him to 2 legs, and then split stance, and then tiptoeing the back leg to get all the pressure. And we really haven't even moved yet. We've just sort of reset the structure in a setting where it has more space to then articulate like we would like to see it, like the ideal is on tape. And then we just kind of ISO him and pulse the movement slowly to where the nervous system almost has a moment of going like, okay, I can do this. And it like reawakens. And then new areas of the foot and new areas of the shin are starting to wake up and get control back, get strength back. Then you can go ahead and progress that athlete. But you're never losing sight of the details. You just get to move a little bit faster with those details. And that's why it helps to have a coach around, like Gary's right there behind the sled push, to make sure that everything's detailed and that you're not doing something like sliding your foot and completely missing the point of why you're in that gym.
Yeah. Like I'm watching like comments and questions and stuff like that. And one of the guys that he typically trolls, he's in there, and he's making a comment about Ike. And it's a shame too, because Ike's like a really, really good guy. And you know, if Ike was on here and he saw it or whatever, Ike would say that GOATA got him 2 years where he was on a practice squad. The Achilles that he ruptured was already a problem. It was already torn a little bit, and he had a lot of stuff done to it. He went through the medical stuff, and you know, Cardell Thomas and Ike had a big conversation, and Cardell was like, he had reached out to Ike and asked him about everything, because Cardell was another lineman that, you know, he was done. He basically was he was injured at LSU for 2 years, and now he started the last 5 games last year. The new staff comes in, and he ain't really played a whole lot this year, but he started in the bowl game or whatever. But anyway, you know, and it's a shame, because it's some punk hiding behind behind like a fake account or something like that. And then the thing with Ike is that, Ike had some pre-existing issues that we couldn't go in there and surgically fix. So, he had a little problem or whatever, and he went inside ankle bone low. He did get hurt in the behavior that we say will get you hurt, but Ike had the opportunity to set his family up for life. You know what I'm saying? And that's what he did. And I just hate seeing that with Ike because people keep trying to
He
use
knows.
him or whatever.
I mean, it's context. It's,
yeah,
a fortunate and unfortunate part of being GOATA or setting up a system like this is that by default, the people that will show up at the door will be wrecked. So, you can have sort of both things going on where like that is the ideal. I think we can all take a step back, just watch the tape play out. And we've been sitting here for, approaching 4 years now, even plus when Gary and Gilly were doing it. And there's been a lot of tape that's been shown, and there's been very, very few arguments, in fact, zero, against inside ankle bone high. We've had yet to show us anybody to show us an inside ankle bone high shred. We've yet to have anybody show us why inside ankle bone high or why the bow, why the corner would be damaging. Nobody can do that. They're not going to talk about that. They're going to use, things like this where you can have two things going on at once. Like, look, we're trying to be honest with you guys in the sense that the nervous system is malleable, but up until a point. And it's malleable inside of, almost not confines, but just kind of things that you have to keep in mind. Like if you're got a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, and you're trying to recode them and you can get them to give you disciplined work, that nervous system's obviously more malleable than somebody in their later 20s, approaching 30s, closer to the crawl, the more malleable you are.
Yeah.
And then the more injuries that you've had input into the system, the more challenging it's going to be. And I think anybody that wants to recode themselves and go through that process, you'll garner a respect for kind of how wrecked you are, how tight your foot and ankle is, and how much time it will take to kind of put enough heat, put enough pressure, gain enough strength, gain enough control, especially down at the foot and ankle complex. And the most challenging athlete, the most challenging recode you'll have is when you have a high-level athlete. This could be, and I say high level from a pro standpoint, or even like 9th, 10th graders. I think high level would be, look, this person's schedule is requiring a lot of competition. We've got high school kids that, man, they play basketball 4 or 5 days a week, in a sense, from a competing not only with their own teammates at practice, but then going out there and in a game. And then you got, spring, you got baseball, and then you got football. And so they're always putting themselves into a competition scenario. So now you're trying to recode as they're going fast. It's more of a challenge in that regard. So we always let our coaches know, like, hey, it's easier if you had a 9-to-5 guy that's just going to walk around and you want to keep them out of pain. But it becomes more challenging as they go up into, more dynamic movement, more volume, more endurance required.
Yeah.
You're always balancing it off the tape. And that's the main goal. And I think at the end of the day for Ike, if you ask Ike, you'll get, Ike still trains GOATA. Like he's not going back to.
Yeah, he rehabbed his whole rehab was
great.
GOATA.
So it's like, there's a lot of tough circumstances that often show themselves.
Yeah. In my point too is like, it's just not a man to sit behind a fake account. And then they constantly bring up, I'm sure he's heard it. Ike's been on like a lot of the comments, and, GOATA was the best decision I ever made. Like, you go from practice squad with a rupture, and then you had already ruptured the other one in college. And then you're sitting there with a golf ball on back your heel. And then somebody gets you to, health to where you could go out there and perform at the highest level with a great team. And you go to the playoffs, and he gets, I think it's public record, like $2.3 million from making $7,000 a week to making $2.3 million for a season. Like, GOATA's helped a lot of people, is blessed a lot of families. You got people that's getting their life back. They so it's not, the thing that's bad about it is that Ike's a really good dude. We take and we'll show an injury to an athlete to try to raise awareness of inside ankle bone high or inside ankle bone low, hiding behind an account like a flunky, and then trying to use, you know
Well,
what I'm saying?
here's
Like
the other
it's
thing
just,
we
it's
talked
pussy
about. You
to
and me and
really
RJ
be,
talked about this the other day. Why not just try it? You know, that's like the funniest thing that blows my mind about
yeah,
GOATA is I see all these people's pages, and if someone's trolling, it's always interesting to see like, okay, what's this guy doing? You know, what's their thing? And like, you'll go back and I mean, you see people trying different stuff. That's all any of us are doing, right? We're trying different things, especially in this industry of training where there's a new idea popping up here or there. And, you know, you'll see these people do these posts where one second they're ragging on GOATA, the next second they're check out this new exercise I found from this other person. It's like, what stopped you from at least trying it out and use it, you know, experiment, like mess around with the movement, ask questions. We've had so many people now. We do these lab weekends. We just did one last weekend where coaches go up there, they stand up there and they're like, I saw your guys' stuff a few years back. I thought it was stupid. I thought it made zero sense. I thought y'all were a joke. They're telling us this
yeah,
to our faces. And then they go, and then I got hurt. And then I had to stop and I had to look at what I was doing. I had to look at the position. I was forced to. And then they're like, oh, I realized that, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so, I mean, we've had that happen every single cert. In fact, unfortunately, every single cert is a bunch of coaches that have wrecked themselves. That's me going to GOATA. That's me showing up to Gary and Gilly. It was the same stuff. I mean, I was wrecked. I was a mess, throwing out my back left and right
yeah.
since 8th grade, looking for answers. Like people are genuinely looking for answers. So, I mean, look, we're coming from a place of trying to heal people, trying to get people back to what they love. Yeah, go ahead.
Some, yeah, somebody commented such a different stance to take, and then in quotes, the nervous system is only malleable to a point. That I think you misunderstood that. What he said is it's easier to recode someone who's closer to the
Yeah,
crawl pattern
the
to
younger
where
you are.
the person that's
Right.
further away from it, that's actually more
Yeah.
embedded into a bad pattern, is harder to recode. But typically what happens is like, you know, I get 50, 60-year-olds all the time. I do a lot of in-house recodes with local people and stuff like that. I've even done them virtually and stuff where, you know, these people aren't demanding as
Yeah.
much from their body. So they're easy to get out of pain, but actually seeing them, like if they would go to take off and run, to see a bow in the corner may not be there as soon as, you know, you would like it to be. The visual part of
Yeah.
it's not there, but the relief is, because once you give the good inputs, the nervous system backs off and it kind of allows the body to relax a little bit. It's like, you know, a pinched nerve or something like that. There's going to be a lot of tense in that area because the nervous system's
Mm-hmm.
trying to protect the spine, to where if you decompress it, let it heal, and it's more in a relaxed state. But that's the whole thing is and I think you did some pretty good, put some good information out this week about decompression in comparison to getting the
Right.
body as long as we can and stuff like that. And that's what, you know, there's a difference between actually seeing the GOATA pattern show up and having the ability to get somebody comfortable or out of pain. It's two different things, but it's all a reprogramming. It's just the process is
Well,
longer
I mean,
for
to simplify
somebody,
it, you can even
you know.
say younger and less injured, the nervous system's more malleable, right? Older and more injured, then the nervous system's not as malleable. Just meaning it's going to, like Gary's saying, it's going to take longer. We'll probably have to spend maybe more time at all fours, more time on, you know, a kneeling position, more time with the wall support so it can stretch out your recode. But like Gary pointed out, the big thing for our Gen Pop are people that maybe don't want to get past, you know, you don't have to jog nowadays to be able to live. That wasn't always probably a fact of life, right? Like you had to get the system going enough to a jog or run, or throw a swing to even eat. Well, that's not the case. You could just walk around and sit down and you'll be just fine. You'll be able to feed yourself. So for that part of those people that they really are in that world, they don't want to go jog. They don't want to go work out. You just got to stand and walk better. And then you have to have enough of a grasp of, you know, 6 pivot points and 4 pivot points just to be able to not let the bad inputs of the day compound to where now you've got, you know, you're sitting at a desk from 9 to 5, you're standing with your hips in front, then you go home and you sit on the couch, then you're sitting at a desk from 9 to 5 and you stand and you just keep cycling that. You never push back against it and go into the back chain. that could be a problem. So GOATA interjects, it stops, it doesn't let the bad compound, it creates a little bit of space, you get relief. So that's how our Gen Pop's using it. But our athletes, the people that are going to get to one pivot point, they're going to get to one leg, they're going to be launching the system or launching an object through space at very high force numbers, very high speed numbers. Well, yeah, we got to get them to one pivot point. So now our Recode program is set up this way to where start you on all fours, work you to a single leg. And single leg is essentially saying 100% of the pressure, 95% of it is going to be in one column. And we want to have the system, the musculoskeletal system, react to sort of that almost fountain-like push of pressure into the system, bottlenecking up through the foot. It's going to organize a certain way, and we want it to be a bow. So we're going to set that early on and then take them through the Recode program. And I guess that's another thing that we're, kind of a quick plug, Recode 225, we're going to be sort of unleashing that Recode program or unveiling it, which it's available in the GOATA app right now for our coaches, where we take you from 4 pivot points to 1. And then we're going to have that also available in Recode 225. So there's a sort of a do-it-yourself version of the Recode program where you can just follow along. It's going to take you from groundwork 101 to advanced single pivot point, and it's going to systematically, step-by-step, take you through that. If you want to work with a coach in the GOATA app, you'll also have that same program. The benefit of the GOATA app and with the GOATA coach is, well, now they can assess you. Now they can show you exactly what your little error is. And it might be something tiny. Like we'll all do maybe the same exercise, but let's say we're doing hip stretch rocker on this side of the body. And for whatever reason, you're stuck on this side. Your head is always over there, hips open and stuck in the front chain. So you have a tougher time of feeling and being aware of what it's like to have your head in the right column and what it's like to close that left hip and to open that right. So the same exercise for you, for me, for Gary, might be felt slightly differently or might need a little more TLC on certain spots. And that's the benefit of being with the GOATA coaches. They will speed up your process. They'll give you the details that you need so that, you can not waste your time. Like you got a busy day, you got a busy schedule, whether you're working a 9 to 5 or you're a top level athlete. I don't want to waste your time. I want you to be able to get in, get out, get the information that you really need, and then code up. And that's another plug. GOATA Institute. We have exciting info coming out for that. I can't unveil it now, but it will be unveiled in the near future. So a couple changes on the Institute coming up that all of our coaches that are in there right now are going to be very excited. And all the coaches that will, be in the future will be excited to hear. And then obviously Recode 225, we're looking to kind of link that to the GOATA app so that, our coaches that are affiliates and that are on the app, they can work with you clients and kind of help guide you guys through in a nice uniform manner, step by step, from all fours to one leg, and get y'all moving GOATA. I know that's what you want. You want life back. You want to be able to move.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want some people want to train, but more people want to live. They want to play. And I think getting that back, you have to be able to control you. You got to be able to control your weight, control your pressure. You don't, as we've said, that you can be explosive WOTA, you can be explosive GOATA, but you can only be durable with one. And the durability is what allows you to keep attacking day in and day out. That could be a weekend warrior that likes to do 5Ks or CrossFit. That could be a, Division I quarterback. It doesn't matter. You're all GOATAs, and you need to be as close as you can be to that GOATA status so that you can keep doing what you love.
Got Kevin asked, how would you recommend that a 12-year-old athlete start? I would take them, try to find if you got a GOATA coach in your area. You could inbox me or whatever, and if we got somebody in your area, I'll let you know. And we got a coaches page that is we've been having web being developed for a year now, so it's been custom, so it's been taking a little bit longer, but all that stuff's coming together so that the coaches will be on a list. But there is a Google map that has some of the coaches in. You can check that. But anyway, inbox me and I'll help you out with that. And then the other thing is there is an eval on the GOATA Movement website that you can purchase, or you could go straight to Recode 225. There's a where to start thing on there, and you could get a subscription there.
Another thing, Gary,
that's how you would.
We're cleaning up the opt-in box, and you'll see this on Instagram. So anybody listening, if you want to get that first sort of the first phase, you could say the first regimen of the Recode program. So it's called, the beginning will be called building the foundation. Phase 1 is going to be just groundwork 101. So we're going to keep you on really all fours. All fours, you got, more pivot points, 2 hands, kneecaps, tops of the feet. It'll be easier for you to respect inside ankle bone high and back chain and still learn what it's like to move the pressure around. So we're going to give that first regimen away. It's going to be in the opt-in box. So just kind of keep your eyes peeled either in the stories or, in a post. But that'll be something where you can at least get a feel for the program and start to get a little bit of decompression, a little bit of space back into the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but one of my pro day guys leaving. Yeah, so that kind of covers some of the product stuff and all of that. But also, like I said, that we got the coaches. If you're looking for a coach, we're gonna have that up here shortly. That way it's a little bit easier. It'll be on the GOATA Movement site, like find a coach. But you can email us on goatamovement.com or whatever. You had a couple of them other, you put some info out this week on some things, if you want to elaborate on some of that, some of the other, the posts that you've been doing. We've been trying to put some education out every morning or whatever.
Some of that is just like the, random assessments that I'm doing throughout the day. Some of it's from the GOATA Institute. But I think the overall thing that people should take away is the frame by frame understanding that we try to bring to not only the coach, but to the athlete, so that they can be very direct with their work. They can be, tapped into that little error that they may have inside the system, that it's so subconscious to them by this point that that's who they are, that you kind of have to bring awareness to their little miss, their subtle problem, that if you go too fast or if you're not paying attention to detail, then you're grooving that same pattern at the foot and the ankle again. And that's a big thing that we noticed, was that strength, speed, endurance were not independent of pattern, right? So like when you're trying to build strength, when you're trying to build speed, when you're trying to build endurance, you also have to take into account what pattern it is that you're programming into that strength, that speed, that endurance. That's what's so challenging about, putting a deadlift or a heavy back squat into your athlete's programming, is that, yes, you can argue that you're creating strength, you're creating speed, maybe you're creating some early muscular endurance, because we know that WOTA can be explosive and you can do that for a little bit. But you haven't checked the box where you put the system into a durable sort of framework. And that durable framework allows that athlete to compete for a season and to stack seasons. So when you're watching these assessments and you're seeing it go frame by frame and you're seeing it zoom in, that's the same stuff that we've done when we reverse engineering the squat or the deadlift, and trying to understand them better, trying to understand what exactly is happening at the foot and ankle complex. And so that's why we walk away from a lot of the lifting, because it all shows the same pattern. And, when you're putting the pattern back into your nervous system, the videos are showing you how much attention to detail goes into not only the coach's understanding of this pattern, but the athlete's ability to then execute the pattern. If they can't execute it, if they can't get into the detailed positions, like Gary started off this thing with, talking about Jameis getting ahead in the column, if they can't get into the positions, they're never going to make any change in the nervous system. So the amount of, information or the analogies, the imagery that's needed it's amateur. It doesn't need to be complex. And I often see that when people start to go astray or they start to mess up with GOATA, it's because they can't code other people, or they can't code themselves anymore. They can't figure it out, right? They only spend, some people only spend a 3-day lab weekend distracted 3-day lab weekend, if that. And then you go back and you're back in your community and you're trying to level up your own body. You're working out every day. You're trying to level up other athletes. And there's really you don't have a recode yet. You haven't actually taken somebody from inner ankle bone low to inner ankle bone high, and you don't know why. And instead of, asking a question or trying to figure out or slow down, these people just assume that, God's creation is faulty and that there's a better way that they figured out, that they know. And what Gary and I learned is something that won't let you stray the path is when you don't trust your own, opinions or your own sort of feels. You trust the tape and you go back to the tape and you use the tape. And, Gary's slow motion, videoing all of Jameis's work in the gym and then going back through it and watching it again, making sure that, if there's a breakdown, it's communicated so that we can have more, of a direct hit to the nervous system when it's time to work, because then you code up better. So if you guys are, that are watching, that are doing their own recodes, that are interested in GOATA, don't lose sight of feel isn't always real. You got to rely on the tape. You've got to ask a couple questions. What is it that we're observing? We're observing the musculoskeletal system. What is that system moving? It's moving pressure. Okay, then what's the pattern of durability, or what is the inherent pattern that plays out when that system moves that thing, when that musculoskeletal system moves that pressure? So you stick to those things. You stick to where is the pressure. You dial in the tips and reminders, and you never stray off the path. And it may not be, post worthy or fire emoji worthy, but you start to actually run different. You actually code up. You can
most
have
of the
it
time
before and after the show.
Yeah. Somebody asked, are you supposed to pivot off the ball of the big toe when moving the bow?
I wouldn't say don't.
Inside.
You're not turning the foot. Like, I think that I don't want, if that's what you mean, I don't want to. Yeah.
That's what
I don't
we were
want to misconstrue
talking about
for you.
earlier.
Like, I want you to feel. Here's what you should feel from what we've seen it look like when we're recreating it to look like what we see on tape. You'll feel essentially two different things. You'll feel your foot holding still, and you'll feel your shin turning independent of that foot. So early on in your recode, it feels like two things. It feels like a lot going on in your brain trying to organize the whole structure from toes to crown to fingertips. And specifically at that foot and ankle junction, it feels like, man, I got to really work hard just to keep my foot inside ankle bone high. And then I got to really work hard to turn the shin and make sure that the shin turning is matched by the hip, is matched by the spine, the shoulder, the wrist. So you stack all those sort of ball and sockets on top of each other, with the shin and the foot being the most important, just because it's at the base where the pressure would bottleneck up. So for your feeling, don't let your foot move. Get your foot set. Take your time when you're doing GOATA work. Take as much time as you need getting that platform set. Spend the majority of your time, cueing, getting that foot set. Get it straight. Get it so that the big toe is making contact. Don't lose that contact as you then move the inner ankle bone high. And so that little tug of war between inner ankle bone and big toe, then notice what you feel. You feel like you've set sort of a half dome arch structure that, from a pressure standpoint, from a feel standpoint, you probably should feel like you're more in the front of your foot, the ball of your foot, and then slightly tilted or angled to the outer corner of the foot. So while I still have contact through the big toe knuckle, it's not unreasonable to say that if I were to pressure map it, it would just get a little more dense towards this outer corner of the foot. Not completely abandoning this from the pressure map, keeping it down. It'd maybe be like a yellow, and then as it got closer over here, it'd be green, and then kind of red where it was really dense. Would probably be a better way of framing it. And then that platform holds still, and then let the shin and the thigh do the turning. And I think if you're focused on that, whether it's child rockers, same idea. If you take the foot and you flip it upside down, now you're on the top outside corner of the foot. You're still keeping your foot sort of magnetized to the ground. Then you're moving. Keep that same feeling when you go to a bolt hold. Keep that same feeling when you go to a bow wall sit. Keep that same feeling when you go to back chain slides, or you go to front drop to back drop slides, or you go to a sled push. That's what we mean by the install one, the assessment and the intro to global laws and the initial tips and reminders and the cues that are set forth. They don't change, right? They just sort of progress. And that makes it lets the athletes, first install feel like a lot of information to take in. But then, session 2, session 3, it starts to compound in a good way. And by your 5th, 6th session, you're pretty proficient in handling yourself.
Yeah, one of the things I've been doing a lot more, and I mean it's been a while I've been doing it like this, but it's like, when we train in the coaches and all of that stuff, we give them everything, right? Like we show them everything, like head to toe, go through the movement, when I get especially like maybe a high school athlete or something like that coming there, because what I would find is in the beginning, I would go through every little phase and the kid's sitting there like,
right.
What's going on? Like this is way, 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 way too much. But so what I do is not, it's like I might go through an eval in 30 minutes instead of an hour and a half. Like I know, like now it's like let's go after these low hanging fruit is
where
what
the
you're gonna
sit,
get. Clean up the columns a little bit. Then we're gonna re-eval again in 2 weeks. Whenever you could at least get yourself into a halfway decent squat. With straight feet, but that's like if you go in there and you try to consume too much of it at one time, and one of the things, like kind of going back to like the ankle and not having the heel flip out and all of that, is if you go and you take the approach maybe of trying to learn too much at one time, you may try to go too much at one time instead of spending more time on those pivot points and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like take 3 exercises and spend 2 or 3 weeks on them. And you don't go change your life. Like if you're a high school athlete or college athlete, you got to go in the weight room, start doing this stuff 3 times a day and then add a couple of more exercises and just get, a little bit better and a little bit better and don't try to go too much at one time. Same thing I was doing. I was giving too much, in the Recode at one time, like full accountability. Now it's like Jameis, his first 3 days was all, and then when he would come in, I'm like, are you doing this stuff at night? Yeah, I was able to get 3 or 4 sets in last night, and that kind of gives me the chance to get that ankle unlocked and stuff like that. But,
we've done, we spent the last year, like we talk about often on this, live, making sure that the system was easy to follow, that there were clean protocols that you could then further sort of curate and create off of as a coach, and have the ability as a coach to trust your eyes, to be really good at seeing, man, who's in front of me? Like, take everything into account. What's their age? Did they just get injured? What's their injury history? What are they capable of in the assessment? How much could I even give that nervous system today to handle in their Recode? I think that's what we want the coach to get good at, is being able to judge the system that's in front of them, the system that they're taking care of, as opposed to, hey, look how many, exercise flashcards I've gathered. Look at how many, exercise flashcards I've remembered. You more want to have the coach's eye, where you got an eye for movement. You got an eye for that system, to where, hey, that person over there, maybe they only need 2 exercises. And then that person right next to them, similar issues, but different age and different injury histories. Well, even though they may have the same issue, that person over here, they might be able to handle 6 exercises because their system's ready for it. So that's what a coach gets really good at. What we've done with the Institute is, we believe the system's very simple. We believe that if we were any good at what we were doing, that the coaches that are coming in now should speed up their learning process from what time it took, me and Gary to reverse engineer this. We want you to learn that. If it took us 2 years, we want you to learn it in 2 weeks. And that's what the Institute is built off of, is to be able to move through a bunch of precise video stacked about 40 deep with PDFs included. And after taking that through and being able to digest it, have a moment where you go, oh, okay, like it is a lot simpler to start somebody. And you start with a basic assessment. In the Institute, you'll see 30-minute, I've done 45-minute, hour-long assessments, depending on what I'm trying to, relay to certain people. But it doesn't have to be more than 5. It could be a 5-minute assessment. It could be a 3-minute explanation of foot awareness that just gets that person in front of you to start to go, that's interesting, right? And then they start to make a habit change. And the way that we're going to change habits with the musculoskeletal system is slowly spoon feeding the nervous system. So we built a Recode program out of our, history of recodes and frequently asked questions. Here's how we've taken people that aren't landing in a bow, they're not landing inside ankle bone high. Here's how we recoded them. We took them from all fours to a single leg. We paid attention to essentially three things. We kept three things in the foreground of our mind when we were doing this recode, being foot control, compression control, head control, right? Inner ankle bone high, back chain dominant, a tail to crown that is tail back, crown forward, and then the tracking system either being centered or in the column. And when we focused on those three things throughout all fours to single leg, you start to feed bows and corners. You start to progress the strength and control in your athlete's nervous system. And then what you should see is you should see their assessment from the beginning portion of the assessment, which would be standing, to the ending portion of the assessment, which would be the sprint, as they go through the Recode program. So when they're in the all fours, kneeling phase, you're starting to see really the front end of the assessment change. So they'll stand better. They may start to squat and toe touch better. But when they go to the run, it still falls apart. Once they get to like 2 pivot points, 1 pivot point, 1 pivot point with no support, and they're very efficient at the end with 1 pivot point with no support, then you start to see the end of their assessment start to change. And that's when you have a before and after. So you have really a before and after when you've taken an athlete from all fours to one leg and you progress them with an understanding of what the global laws are. That's how you change somebody's sprint from being inside ankle bone low to being inside ankle bone high. Gary's done it. I've done it. RJ's done it. And we basically put it into a one-size-fits-all, a stock program that inside the GOATA app can then be further sort of tweaked and curated depending on your coach and what they see on the tape. Or it can be followed as is in the Recode225.com platform. May take a little bit longer because maybe you spend a little more time, but nonetheless, you're still moving in the right direction and you're changing behavior. And when you change behavior, you change habits. When you change the habits, your lifestyle changes, the opportunity to play and to move change. And then your durability goes up, so you get more opportunities. It works for a 9-to-5 person. It works for a high-level professional athlete.
And you gotta make change if you want a different result, if you want it. But usually we try to go about an hour. I gotta try to go run to the field before I get to the house. But the pro guys, they out there doing their little they drilling outside today. So but yeah, we're gonna take this. And if you got to it late, we're going to chop it up and throw it up on our YouTube channel, which is The Real GOATA Movement.
It says
right?
GOATA
Real GOATA
Movement.
Yeah.
The at would be at GLS GOATA. If you type in GOATA Movement, you should see the page. You'll see the GLS GOATA. You'll see the lives. You'll see it says the official YouTube, often imitated, never duplicated, but everybody likes some GOATA and some WOTA.
Yeah. So you could go there, and then y'all already know our Instagrams, and then go to movement.com if y'all need anything. But we'll be here next Friday.
I would say also leave you with this. Stay tuned in. Like we talked about, the Recode program is up in the GOATA app. So get with the GOATA coach. Let them start to progress you from all fours to single leg. That Recode program is going to be mirrored in Recode 225. So our people have asked and we're going to deliver. We're going to give you guys a to-follow step-by-step Recode program from all fours to single leg, PDF included, education included on, how to do each exercise. So we'll be highly detailed with it. And then our coaches that are affiliates, our coaches that are linked to both, will be able to sort of work with their athletes either in the GOATA app or then kind of transition them to more of a maintenance, or they start a few regimens, maybe do 3 regimens on the app and then transition them over to Recode 225. And then all my coaches that are in the Institute, stay tuned for an announcement, exciting announcement regarding some changes, some good changes to the Institute, and then look for some more information regarding the Institute as far as you know, availability. We're going to change a few things. I think everybody that's out there that's looking at it and wants to get, you know, a little bit further involved in the education of this, that would like to work with athletes, or, you know, they've seen change in their own body and they want to start to help their community, just pay attention to the GOATA Institute, because we got some stuff we're releasing there. So, you know, as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in, and, you know, look for the YouTube and then look on our pages. We'll chop this thing up and give you the quick hits.
Yeah.
All right. Peace.
All right, fellas. See y'all.